Okay, this is kind of my part two about removing the steering wheel, and I'm going to eventually be replacing it. So first thing you need to do is you're going to have to lock the steering wheel, okay? And then you're going to want to mark it. I used a piece of tape. If you're going to put the steering wheel back on, you got to have it lined back up, and there's no easy way to do that other than just you have to mark it somehow. You can mark it internally. A piece of tape on the outside works pretty good too. So this particular vehicle here, let's see, takes a T50 Torx bit, and you need to loosen this first before you pull the wheel off. So this will take either a breaker bar or an impact. It is definitely, they are snugged in there pretty good, and so you definitely are going to need to have one of these bigger Torx bits set. You need these for seat belts and a few other assorted things on cars. You generally don't need torque bits this big, but it is really handy to have. So what you're going to want to do is, first of all, lock the steering wheel and then just get this loose, okay? Don't take it all the way out, just get it loose for now. All right, so what you're going to do next here is you're going to get yourself a puller kit. These are not very expensive. It's a universal steering wheel puller kit, and you're going to pick the screws that fit the threads. This spot right here, this is meant for your steering wheel puller. So you're going to assemble this, and this is a universal kit, so depending on the steering wheel you have, you'll use different like slots in this bracket thing. So you're gonna just kind of line that up and get it attached. All right, so you're gonna get this puller situated where the bottom, the kind of pointy part of this is inside that T50 Torx nut, or bolt rather, in the center. And then you're going to tighten these down kind of snug side to side, and then you're going to slowly start turning this clockwise and put tension on it. So what it's doing is the steering wheel is going to be pulled, around that center hub there. So also make sure this Torx bit in the center, it has to be loose. It cannot be tight. It has to be backed out a little bit. So you want to back it out maybe like 5 or 6 threads before you start putting the steering wheel puller on it. All right, so these kits are temperamental because they are a universal puller set. So here is the bolt that's the T50 Torx in the center. So with this puller kit, the way I had it set up, I had this brass piece pushing down in the center of this nut as it's trying to, push down on it to pull the steering wheel off. Well, what that started doing was it started turning this clockwise and tightening it back down. So you may need to get creative. So the principle here is you want to be pushing on the center of that without damaging the threads. That's the idea. So you may need to get creative and use something like a small socket or a piece of metal to get in there and basically use that as an extension to this central screw piece. So again, these are temperamental. Be patient. There's a couple different ways you can put this together. You may use the short bolts, you may use the long bolts, but be patient with it because again, this is a universal set. That's really all they sell, and so they're not like an excellent tool. They're just enough to get you by. And these steering wheels are cast aluminum on the inside, so try not to strip out these threads. Once you get it set up, make sure they're snug, but they're easy to strip out, so something to be mindful of. All right, again, these things are temperamental, so I ended up having to take this screw out using this kind of sharp pointed part, and then I used a small what is this, like a 9mm socket to finally get it down in there without screwing up the internal threads, because you don't want to damage those internal threads. You want to keep those intact. If you get something sharp in there, you'll mash them up and it'll be screwed up. So and you just got to give the steering wheel a good kind of yank and it'll come right off. All right, so once you get this thing kind of nudged out of there, there's going to be one more clip, which is this white little box here. You want to unclip that, and then your steering wheel is going to come off completely, and that's going to expose this piece here, and this is called your clock spring. Oh, look at that. Made in Germany. Ja, sehr gut. Sometimes if you have an issue with your cruise control, this is the problem. So if you need to replace the clock spring, you have to take the wheel off and do all of this to get to this unit here. Now, this car doesn't have, this car's not going to have cruise control, so I'm not worried about it, but this is kind of a delicate piece. It's got a bunch of wound up stuff in there. So, I may remove it, I may leave it alone, I'm not sure, but this is your clock spring. That's part of your cruise control mechanism. Anyway, that's where I'm at so far. And let's see, get this out of the way here. So as you can see, this is not round. Okay, so these look round, but they are not. And the reason is they want to have like an interference fit. So this new one is a hex shape. I mean, it is close. This is slightly, and I mean slightly too small. So I think I'll be able to get like a Dremel tool or a die grinder and be able to open that up a little bit. And again, you're gonna actually, because the steering wheel is locked, it's actually going to get mounted kind of like this in order for it to be, you know, flush. But yeah, so I'm going to get in there and basically open this up a little bit, get it to sink down in there, put a little epoxy in there, and then put that T50 Torx bit back on it. And then I will have retrofitted this steering wheel. Now, this is not the proper way to do it. This is not the safe way to do it. This is not the Ford authorized way to do it. This is the very much backyard way to do it, but it can be done. I had another car, and I ended up using a Lincoln LS steering wheel, and I put it on a town car. And same kind of thing. It had a different keyway. And I was able to just use a Dremel tool, open it up, put it in there, use some JB Weld, and then put it back down. Now, the one thing is when you put a steering wheel like this on that is aftermarket, you may be out of round, or how should I say, it may not be concentric, meaning that this hole is not going to line up perfectly with this. Once you enlarge this out, you may have, you know, 0.5 millimeter this way or that way or that way. So your steering wheel, as it's rotating, is actually going to not be on the exact same axis of rotation. It may actually be sitting off, you know, just a little bit to one side. It's not a big deal, but it's not going to be like a factory perfect feel once you retrofit a steering wheel on here that was never meant to go here in the first place. Anyway, that's all I got for you today.